Silence is a powerful tool. It can mend broken relationships, diffuse conflicts, and even transform a person's destiny. There are moments in life when silence speaks louder than words, where remaining quiet isn't a sign of weakness but of immense strength and wisdom. This story revolves around two individuals who learned the significance of being silent in two crucial situations, when they were angry and when they were being falsely accused. In the bustling city of Mumbai, a young man named Leo lived with his family. He was a hardworking and intelligent individual, but he had one major flaw: his temper. Leo would often react impulsively, letting his anger dictate his words and actions. His parents and friends had warned him several times, but he never took their advice seriously. One day, Leo had an important meeting with a client for his company. He had worked for weeks preparing for this deal, ensuring everything was perfect. However, on the morning of the meeting, his younger brother, Rohan, accidentally spilled coffee on Leo's laptop, erasing all the data he had worked so hard to compile. Furious, Leo stood up, his face turning red with anger. "Do you even realize what you've done, Rohan? You've ruined everything. You're so careless, so irresponsible. I wish you'd just stay out of my way." Rohan, shocked and hurt, stood silently, his eyes welling up with tears. He wanted to apologize, but Leo stormed out of the house without giving him a chance to speak. As Leo drove to work, his hands tightened around the steering wheel, his mind racing with frustration. He kept replaying the incident in his head, imagining different ways it could have gone. If only he had saved his work elsewhere. If only Rohan had been more careful. If only he had controlled his temper. But the damage was done, and his words had already hurt his brother deeply. By the time he reached his office, his anger had not subsided. His best friend and colleague, Samir, immediately noticed his frustration. "What happened?" Samir asked. Leo narrated the whole incident, still fuming. Samir listened patiently and then said, "Leo, have you ever considered staying silent when you're angry?" "What do you mean?" Leo frowned. "Silence in anger can save you from hurting the ones you love," Samir explained. "You lashed out at Rohan, but did yelling solve the problem? The coffee is spilled, the data is lost, and now your brother is hurt. What did anger change?" Leo was quiet. He knew Samir was right. His anger had achieved nothing but pain. Despite the chaos of the morning, Leo tried to refocus on his meeting. He pieced together some backup files and went into the conference room, determined to salvage the deal. But his mind kept wandering back to Rohan's tearful face. His guilt gnawed at him. After the meeting, which went decently despite his setbacks, Leo decided to take a break. He sat alone in the office lounge, thinking deeply about what Samir had said. He remembered moments from his childhood when Rohan would always look up to him, following him around, eager to learn and be a part of his world. Their bond had always been strong, but in his moment of anger, he had pushed his little brother away. He also thought about other instances in his life where his temper had gotten the best of him. Small arguments that had turned into weeks of silence, friendships that had suffered because of words he had spoken without thinking. Was his anger really worth it? Was venting frustration more important than maintaining relationships? Leo sighed. He knew what he had to do. That evening, when Leo returned home, he found Rohan sitting quietly in his room, still upset. The usual excitement in his little brother's eyes was missing. Guilt weighed heavily on Leo's heart as he knocked gently on the door. Rohan glanced up but said nothing. "I'm sorry, Rohan," Leo said sincerely. "I should have controlled my anger. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that." For a moment, Rohan remained silent. Then, in a quiet voice, he said, "I didn't mean to ruin your work, Bia. I was just trying to help by bringing you coffee. I'm really sorry." Leo felt an even deeper pang of regret. His brother had only been trying to be kind, and yet he had lashed out at him so cruelly. "I know," Leo said softly. "And I should have listened instead of shouting. Sometimes, staying silent in moments of anger is the best thing to do. I learned that today." Rohan finally smiled, a small but genuine smile. "It's okay, Bia. I forgive you." They hugged, and in that moment, Leo understood something valuable. Silence during anger prevents damage that words can never undo. A week passed, and Leo consciously worked on controlling his temper. One afternoon at work, a junior colleague, Priya, made a serious mistake in a report that was supposed to be sent to a major client. The mistake could have cost them a big contract. When Leo saw the errors, frustration bubbled inside him. He was about to raise his voice but then remembered Samir's words. "Stay silent when you're angry." Instead of reacting immediately, he took a deep breath. Then, in a calm voice, he asked Priya to go through the report again. She quickly spotted the errors and apologized profusely, promising to fix them. If Leo had shouted, she would have been flustered and anxious, possibly making more mistakes. But because he had controlled his temper, the problem was solved efficiently, and their professional relationship remained intact. When he told Samir about the incident, his friend smiled knowingly. "See, silence is powerful. Gives you time to think before you speak. It stops you from making situations worse." Leo nodded. He was beginning to see the wisdom in silence. That evening, Leo returned home in a good mood. He had learned to control his anger at work, and he was feeling proud of himself. But life had another test waiting for him. As soon as he entered the house, he saw his mother looking upset. "What happened, Ma?" he asked. "Rohan got into trouble at school today. His teacher called to say he was arguing with another student and refused to listen when she tried to intervene." Leo frowned. This was unlike Rohan. He went to his brother's room and sat down beside him. "What happened today?" he asked calmly. Rohan hesitated. "A boy in my class kept making fun of my best friend. I told him to stop, but he didn't. I got angry and yelled at him. Then the teacher scolded me instead," Rohan said, his voice full of frustration. Leo smiled slightly. "I understand why you were upset. But sometimes silence speaks louder than words. If you had stayed calm and reported it to the teacher instead of shouting, you wouldn't have gotten into trouble. And your friend would have still been protected." Rohan thought about it and nodded slowly. "You mean like how you stayed calm with your colleague at work?" Leo chuckled. "Exactly." That night, as Leo lay in bed, he realized that his journey with learning silence had just begun. But he was ready, because now he understood. Silence isn't about weakness. It's about control, patience, and wisdom. And in moments of anger, it can save relationships, prevent mistakes, and bring peace. Moral of this story is that there are times in life when silence is more powerful than words. When you are angry, staying silent can prevent unnecessary hurt. It allows you time to think, reflect, and respond wisely. Silence in moments of anger isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about choosing self-control over regret.